everyone, this is DDRichR1 here, and in this video today we are going to be taking a look at my prototype Gemmy life-size horror characters. Now the one on the left is a replica, but it's so cool and so accurate that I decided to include it in this. But the rest of the three are in fact legitimate. You've already seen the three on the left before, but the one on the right is new. So in front of us here we have a replica 2010 H2O Michael Myers prototype. We have a prototype of the 2008 Jason Voorhees life-size. Then we have a early prototype of the 2005 Freddy Krueger life-size. And on the far right there you have a prototype of the 2007 Leatherface life-size. And it's a really unique variety. You know, you have some that, you know, like the Freddy is very early, and then the Jason and Leatherface are, I'd say they're pretty early for what they are. They're both second gen prototypes, so they're not like resin, EEPROM, all of that. But they are kind of early prototypes for the second gens, which is very neat in my opinion. And it's really cool just to see all of them here together. But yeah, this video is just going to be going over these, just demoing them a couple times, explain what they are, and then all of them going at once, which will be pretty crazy. But it's time to start off with the first character here. So here in front of us we have a prototype of the second gen Leatherface for the 2007 season. Now there's a few differences with this guy from 2006 and even from a production 2007. You know, 2006 had eyebrows, like darker brown eyes, a ton of blood everywhere. And 2007 has more reddish eyes and no eyebrows. So that's the big difference when you're looking at a production one. But this has notable differences from production. Now initially the arm was angled up and out a lot more, like production 07 Leatherfaces, but this was still built with like 06 Leatherface mechanics and whatnot, so it would actually just not be able to work with the body turn with the arm like that. In fact, the body turn was fried at least 2 times, if not 3 in total, just because of how much it was struggling to carry that extra weight from it being extended out so far. So the arm was repositioned and it still works, but it's at a more stable location. The apron is unfortunately pretty cracked, but like with production, I believe, for the 07, there is no added blood, there is just the screen printed blood. Now something you might have noticed right away, there is not a drop of blood on his shirt, which is so cool and interesting because obviously the 06 Leatherface has a lot more blood on the clothing than the 07, but the 07 still has some. This guy has none. So it's probably one of the very few shirts out there with no blood on it whatsoever. You can just see it's literally just a dress shirt. None of that extra blood on there. Which is kind of crazy if you think about it, because that means for 07 they were thinking of just putting no blood on the shirt at all. Yet the apron and chainsaw will be bloody, which kind of not the best design, I would say, but I'm sure it saves some money and time. But yeah, and just to take a look at the base here, it's really strange because it's the correct style base, but there is an empty mic port labeled mic, and there is an aux port. And the aux port, if I remember correctly, does function like the speaker jack on the 06 and production 07. But this one says aux, so that makes me feel like for 07 they were considering giving him aux mode instead of external speakers so you could play whatever various sounds from the movie or what have you through it. Also on the chainsaw itself, there's a black battery compartment cover instead of a yellow one, which might have been a money-saving thing, I'm not sure, but in production it ultimately got a yellow one like with 06. The original chain for this guy was sadly broken, and a new chain was obtained through this knockoff chainsaw here. So it's not an original chain, but it still gets the job done, and it does a pretty good job at doing it. But yeah, that's all really there's to say about Leatherface. I've not intensely studied a production '07 head to compare, but I'm sure there's paint differences. The hairline was moved back on this because why not? But yeah, it's just a really neat looking piece, really freaky. And for the first time in a long time, he is fully operational. So without further ado, I will start going through the phrases, if you want to call them that. I'll just put him on censor here. Next up, we have Freddy Krueger. If you want to see a really elaborate video on this guy and his history and his differences and whatnot, you can check out the video I recently uploaded on him specifically. I highly recommend it. But one little neat thing that I can do that I couldn't do in the other video is compare his shoes. So I mentioned in that video that these were more detailed looking compared to the production shoes, but what I neglected to realize at the time, they're completely different sculpts altogether. So it's not just a watered down from production thing, like they're actually different. So you can see here, there's some lines and ridges carved on the bottom of the shoe, and on this one, there are none. You can see the lines and whatnot on top of this shoe, and the way that they are done. And with this, it's just a bunch of little gashes. And here you can see the lace. It's a little bit longer and thinner, and this is a little shorter and fatter. Here, I'll pull this up a little, if it'll work with me here. So I don't know how well you can tell on camera, but they are very different. These are also slightly wider or taller or something, slightly larger. But that's a neat little detail that I neglected to mention. But yeah, this Freddy Krueger is a very early one, made in 2004 for the 2005 season. Different colored pants. The sweater is a different pattern with the stripes. The sweater ends with a thick amount of green instead of a thin amount like every other Freddy ever. So kind of an odd design choice there. It was obviously changed for production. He's got a very detailed resin hand here, and this hand is also resin, which is very detailed. You can see there the skin. And the mouth actually shuts all the way. It was re-glued to do that. You can see the gums are different color than the injuries, which is not how it's done in production. And he has a very angled head because he has a 5-foot character's head turn mech kind of just shoved in there all crazily. And he has a modified butler shell with a ton of foam padding. So that's really all there is to kind of say about this Freddy here. Again, there's more to the story, and you can see that in the individual video for him, as it also is with Jason and Michael. Although keep in mind, this Jason is working much better now than in his video. So without further ado, I will plug in Freddy. We'll play through a few of these phrases.
I'm gonna split your tooth. Ever played Skin the Cat? Come to Freddy. Welcome to my nightmare. Tell him Freddy sent ya. Oh, what's wrong? Did someone have a nightmare? You're mine now, piggy. Trick or treat.
And I'll go ahead and stop it there. If you want to see the rest of his phrases, feel free to check out the individual video on him, like I said. And now we are going to move on to the Jason. So now we have Jason, and this one is really cool. First of all, it has a label, which the others are missing, and it also has its original box. You can see the item numbers written on there. And it even has this tape, which indicates that it went through, Homeland Security and whatnot, which is cool. So that kind of makes me feel like this actually wasn't put on a pallet with other samples and it was just shipped, which is really neat. But with the Jason itself, this is built off of an 07 Jason. However, there's a lot of differences. I have my 07's head right here. First of all, there's a lot more hair, but then if you just look at the mask shape and color, it's incredibly different how it's done. Very different paint, kind of a different shape to it. Overall, just really different. Kind of do a side profile of the heads there. So this doesn't have cheap eyes, it has the nice 07 eyes. And some other differences here. There is no blood on the shirt whatsoever. When I originally got to look in this thing, the wires for the body turn motor were just not attached to the motor at all, which makes me feel like they were actually considering scrapping the body turn movement at one point for 08, which would have been, pretty terrible, honestly, if they did that. So I'm glad they kept that in. The tears might be in different places from an 07 jacket. I have not memorized that detail. There's a little smudge on the mask there, and there's actually some paint on the side of the head here dripping down that kind of looks like that paint. It could be fake blood, but it's just so orange and it just matches that so well. So I'm thinking that's a factory error. They even got some green paint on the ear right there. And you can see that there's still some hair, but there's a lot less of it. And of course, a very notable detail is the label on the base. This was originally near his head mechanism for some reason, but it has been put where it typically would be and should have been originally. You can see there. It's a little rough, but it says 6 foot KD Jason. and they kind of printed it terribly, honestly. It's supposed to be in the middle and a little bit larger. But yeah, there's not much else to say aside from the fact that he has a huge adapter. I don't have another one next to it to compare, but normally these adapters are like half the size, but this one is really big and really heavy. Katie Jason, it says. And like it's actually crazy. It's like a whole item inside of there. It's a similar style with how it's arranged, but just this is much larger and heavier, which is odd because in 07 it was smaller. But now, without any further ado, I will plug him in and we will do a demonstration. Now we're going to move on to the Michael Myers. Not as much to just say here with the backstory. It is a replica, but it's very well done. It's by far the best out there. A lot of changes were made. The arm was made a correct length. On production, they made this arm way shorter than the other. The head was widened. The mask was repainted. The eyes were changed to be blue. The wig is actually from a Rob Zombie, and so are the hands. The blade is hand painted to look like a prototype blade. And the programming, and this wouldn't be original to an H2O prototype, but it has the early Rob Zombie movement program, which is really neat. But that's all there really is to say about this guy. Just a lot of effort put into this. It looks great. Very proud of CJ Wilber for how well he did at doing this guy. And his nose paint has been fixed since you last saw him, but now I'll demonstrate it. So now we are going to demonstrate all of them at the same time. This will likely be a wee bit chaotic, but I think it'll be really cool. So now we're going to plug everything in and see what happens. But yeah, guys, that was my Gemmy life-size prototype collapsible horror character collection with the replica included. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.